All right. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is episode 2 of our brand new podcast adventure. Here I am, Kelly Gray of The Empowered Daughter. And with me is Marianne King of Tru-Knowing Holistics. And we're just going to jump right in with an invocation and then start chatting from there. So, did you want to go ahead, Marianne?
All righty. So let's just take a minute then to bring ourselves to this here and now.
Mm.
And through the power of intention and breath, let's just feel ourselves present in this here and now, in our bodies, in this space. Let us call into this space a sacred mist. So see, sense, and imagine in a way that has meaning for you, that there's a most beautiful mist forming in front of you. Understand that this mist is created by your higher self and all the guides and guardians that work with you. This mist is composed of the highest energetic infusions. And as the mist starts to approach and envelop you, see, sense, and imagine that it is removing from you that which no longer serves, elevating and enhancing that which does. And just allow yourself to sense the feeling of support and unconditioned love that is within this mist. Perhaps even allow yourself to take a deeper breath or two to bring this mist in and throughout your entire being. And as you do, begin to feel yourself, perhaps even involuntarily, starting to smile as the joyousness of this essence, of this mist, of this divine design is made known to you. And as we do so, we declare this space sacred, sanctified, and we ask to be clear channels of the wisdom and the knowledge that is wanting to be expressed joyously, completely, and fulfillingly. And may it be so as it is so, and so it now becomes.
So it now becomes. Oh, that's beautiful. You know, you've
Thank
introduced me
you.
to the sacred mist practice, and I just love working with it.
It's just such a simple but potent practice. And, as humans, we want to unnecessarily complicate things. We want there to be 30 steps, and somehow the 30 steps makes it more effective. When you're dealing with energetics, usually simple is most potent because then the thinking mind can't become engaged. The thinking mind is sort of surrendered to the experience and the body knows what to do with that sacred method. And so I think it would be almost, rather than think, I sense it would be almost impossible to do the sacred mist without having some sense of
Mhm.
happening within you. Yeah.
I
Yeah. So we
certainly
were
feel
talking
that.
about moving into surrender and serenity. And we were speaking about the power of being in the moment, irrespective of what the moment might look like. We were talking about how I recently experienced COVID. And as I moved through that experience, and we're not going to make comments on the COVID experience itself, it is to each person what it needs to be. For me, it was an experience in surrender because literally, physically was not able to carry on day to day normal, so to speak. It really was a matter of, oh, look how fond I am of my couch. Oh, look how fond I am of just sitting in space and just being in awareness because you really don't have enough energy to read. You don't have enough energy to write. I'm not
Right.
journaling. I'm doing a lot of invocations, a lot of awareness, and just that space of surrendering into what wants to come forth. And that's what we wanted to address today, the power of asking a question
Mm.
without an answer. So the power of asking a question without an answer. The egoic part of us is like, as soon as someone asks me a question, I got to have an answer. And it's true. Sometimes there will be an answer that's immediately there. I've been discovering, particularly over these past 2 weeks, the power of sitting in silence, the power of actually allowing yourself to not immediately have an answer to a question. And we wanted to explore the potency of being in that place of surrender.
It's a powerful place. I think it's a
Mhm.
really powerful place. I think that it's a place, it's fertile ground for new discoveries, curiosity, and letting go of maybe that need of control for having everything figured out all of the time. Um,
Mhm.
I have found that I've taken, sometimes we're forced by life to take some space And
Yeah.
sometimes it's been a choice sometimes for me. When I've done plant medicine, dieta is a big part of that is fasting and not doing anything. You're not really supposed to
Hmm.
be doing much in terms of reading. There's no internet, all of that kind of stuff. It's meant to be contemplative time where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
ask greater questions of your life and you don't have the answers come immediately to you. And there's something very it's just not part of our normal, I think, Western culture where we're go 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 and we're
Hmm.
always thinking a few steps ahead. It's a different space to explore and to be in, isn't it?
Well, and I think that's the blessing, or I wonder if that isn't the blessing of illnesses like COVID or any of the illnesses that come to you that literally
Mm,
stop you from
yeah,
following your daily patterns. I mean, most of us have daily patterns that serve us well, but all of us also have daily patterns of deflection or distraction or denial or avoidance of those moments when we go deeper and we ask to sit in this space without expectation. So, certainly for me, it was a bit of an eye opener. It's like, okay, universe, just let's be clear. I don't need to be ill again to be able to move into that deeper space
yeah,
of
got the message, thanks.
contemplation. No, right? Got the message, have the
Yeah,
t-shirt, don't need to visit again. However, I am in awareness that it's a little ironic that the message that was received during the intensity of the illness was that very thing. Let me surrender into being present right now, and however right now is, what do I need to know, do, or be to be present to this moment in the best way possible? That there weren't answers immediately, and that there were moments of just nothing, no emotion, no thought, but it wasn't unpleasant. It wasn't scary. It was just neutral, a neutral space. And that's a rich space to be in because then we can listen. Mm,
absolutely. And I think you hit on something really profound that I just want to highlight, which is we need to, if we're growth oriented or we're developing ourselves or we're coming into kind of reciprocity with the energies of the universe, right? And having a
mhm.
relationship with those energies, we often need to disrupt our patterns.
Yes.
We often actually need something to disrupt our patterns to create spaciousness so we can contemplate the patterns we find ourselves in and say, is this really what I want? Let me check in. But that requires that quiet and that
Hmm.
listening.
Hmm. And granted, one doesn't need to become ill or to be in a place of 24/7 quiet contemplation,
Right.
recognizing that in day-to-day life there are things that need to get done and places we need to go. However, I'm curious to know what it might be like for people if on a daily basis they began small, and we do better when we engage egoic mind in a way that still feels like it's in control. I wonder what it would look like if a person were to set a timer on their phone or their microwave for even 5 minutes, and for
Mm.
5 minutes just sit. For the egoic part that needs to be in control or has something to do, maybe doodling would be a good way to engage the
Yes.
egoic mind so that it's still busy. Ego does better when we give it something to do. That's part of its function. So I wonder what that might look like if a person were to invite themselves to take 5 minutes. For some people, that might be first thing in the morning. For some people, it might be last thing at night. I myself don't do a lot of spiritual or energetic work at night. Otherwise, sometimes it can act like coffee for me. So then I'm awake and I'm ready to go, and my body's like, excuse me, supposed to be sleeping. So people might need to experiment with what time of day works best for me. But what a glorious act of curiosity it would be to spend 5 minutes with no agenda. I'm just going to sit with myself for 5 minutes and let's see what comes up. And to stay in that place of curiosity, because I can guarantee you this, the first minute or so is going to be filled with a long list of what ego wants you to get up and go do, because that's what ego does. So perhaps if you were just to even utilize the phrase later, yeah, I'll get to that later. Yeah, I'll get to that later. And allow, I remember Wayne Dyer talking about it a long time ago, and the visual really appeals to me. He talked about consciousness being like a pond. You drop a stone into the pond. When it first starts to come down, the first few layers are very busy, 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 busy. And
Mm.
come up with whatever phrase works for you. But you continue to allow the stone to drop until it reaches that space where there's no longer this unending stream of consciousness, and you're just in the being. And even to begin to experience what that might look or feel like if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, well, that's just such a beautiful and powerful visual. I think that
Hmm.
everyone can kind of relate to and see. Because often what also comes up for that, like you said, in that first minute where the mind is busy, 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 need to do this, need to do that. Sometimes what can happen for us is guilt because we're sitting still. So
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
understanding that that might be possible and holding ourselves through the guilt, like that's just a well-worn reaction to get us to be productive. And so we're just going to
Yeah.
hold space there. We can
Yeah.
surrender and go, wow, I'm
Yeah.
only really taking 5 minutes for myself. And
Yeah.
already the taskmaster with the lists and the guilt has shown up. Oh, how really
Hmm.
interesting. But, continuing on the journey of the 5 minutes to just see what
Hmm.
else wants to make itself present and known to you, or even just if it's 5 minutes of exploring guilt. What is this teaching me? There's also something really interesting there. And I loved what you said about curiosity, because I think when we are approaching life with a certain amount of curiosity, whoa, I think that is such a golden ticket to
Yes.
richer lands, because children are curious.
Hmm.
They don't have their minds made up. They're
Nope.
exploring the world, they're
Yeah.
exploring themselves, they're
Yeah.
curious. So curiosity is potent, potent, potent when we're doing any sort of, I
Hmm.
don't know,
Hmm.
self-development kind of work, or exploring energies, or
And
all of
even a
these things.
curiosity that's phrased as, oh, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now?
Yeah.
What else could that mean? And
Yeah.
so we switch the dialogue. We switch from condemnation, which is an auto repeat, to,
Yeah.
yes, I am feeling, thinking, blah, blah, blah right now. I wonder what that's about. And
Yeah.
just follow the stream of consciousness rather than engage, debate, or deny it. I'm prompted to say that it would be a really good idea to bring in a power animal when we're doing this practice. So there's 5 minutes of surrender to just being present. And I'm shown that swan actually would be a good power animal to bring
Mm,
in, particularly because we're talking about the analogy of the pond and the stone dropping to the bottom of the pond.
yeah.
And what if we were to imagine a most gracious, most regal swan
Mm,
swimming on the top surface of the pool and just swimming in circles so that we're literally imagining that we're in the center of that pool. Our brain is the pool, and we have the swan swimming along the top of our head, so in our crown area. And she just brings in that regalness. I perceive a white swan. It may be white or a different color for another. And just is in that place of keeping the space clear so it can't get muddied. It can't get really rough or uncomfortable. She's just smoothing the waters.
mm,
And as she's smoothing the waters, we could start with that image of the stone and just with a question: what does the stone have to show me today?
yeah.
Let the stone drop down into the waters and take you to where you need to be. It might be that you have these conversations with yourself about feelings or emotions that come up. You might have a childhood memory resurface that you haven't thought
Mm,
about in a long time, but curious. Be in a place of
yeah.
questioning. Let me be curious about this. I love watching little kids because they will walk up to a rose. They don't know it's called a rose. They don't have a preformed conception. They don't have a fixed point of view. And each rose they see is a new rose to them. Let's approach that when we're experiencing these mini moments of consciousness.
Mm,
5 minutes
mhm.
a day, swan over top pond and the stone dropping down into the pond. What does the stone have to show me today? You can't have a conclusion with that because you don't know where the stone's going. It's going to go into the pond of your consciousness to where it needs to go. And each time I'm shown that we do this act of surrender, this act of courageous surrender, because it
Yeah.
takes
Yeah.
balls to
It
sit
does.
and go, you know what? For 5 minutes, I'm going to listen to my internal chatter. I'm going to listen to the universe. I'm going to listen instead of telling the universe what it is I would want to know or benefit from today. That's an act of courage. So bring in Swan, bring in Pebble, and let's be curious about the Pebble. Maybe some days the Pebble's like a freaking boulder because it's got a lot to tell us.
Yes.
Maybe other days it's a tiny little flat one where when you sit down, there'll be a part of you going, okay, today's going to be a light day. That's good. Right?
Yeah. Right.
The curiosity, the potency of curiosity and
Yeah.
asking the question. Mm,
Ah, I think that that's really beautiful. And I love the open ended nature of it. And I think
yes.
we're so well served when we start to ask these questions.
Mhm.
We're so well served
I
when we
mean, how
ask
do
these
we grow?
questions.
We don't grow within our zone of comfort. And for you and I, for anyone that's been
No.
on the path of self discovery, any of the great leaps we've done have usually been because we're in a place of some type of contemplation or reception. And we're given an idea that is completely new to us, but well known to the universe. And it's made
Yeah.
giant changes in terms of who we are, what we understand ourselves to be, and our purpose. So 5 minutes a day seems a small price to pay for flexing the muscle of curiosity.
Oh,
Hmm?
that's beautiful. I love that. Flexing the muscle of curiosity and flexing the muscle of courage. Because as you
Yes.
touched on, it does take courage. We are not a contemplative society. We're not a contemplative culture. Where this isn't really we're not really encouraged to go within and find our own answers. We're very much
Hmm.
brought up through a school system and our parenting system where you should be a doctor, you should
Yep.
be this or that. And a lot of people aren't
Compliance.
necessarily like, yeah, compliance and not necessarily choosing their path. So this is a really beautiful way to start to become the co-creator
Hmm.
of your life and to see what you want, what
Yes.
the universe wants for you, and changing the very relationship we have with this
Hmm.
whole 3D reality and what this really is, and start to like
Hmm.
awaken and enliven parts of us that maybe haven't really gotten expression. But the courage piece is so important. And I just want to say really briefly about courage, um, that I find when I'm working with clients, is that courage does not mean the absence of fear. It doesn't mean I've overcome my fear because and now I'm in this space where there's no fear and that's what courage is. No, courage means fear is present. Courage
Hmm.
means fear is present. So if we're feeling a little
Hmm.
nervous about going within, that's okay because we can muster and we can kind of stir the ethers of our courage, the energy signature of courage to just step into
Hmm.
this space and making it a
Hmm.
5 minute beautiful. I love the visual of the swan and the stone, makes it such a beautiful practice. So it's not some
Hmm.
big dive off a cliff in terms of exploring your
Exactly.
consciousness. It's really
Yeah.
it's a delicious taste tasting it, right?
It's a taste test, right? And it
Yeah.
speaks to really encouraging yourself to become internally generated. And how many
Yeah.
wonderful things will now come into awareness because you're not busy doing all the doing that you do. For that 5 minutes, you're being,
Yeah.
you are be in the moment. And I have a sense that the entire universe does a little happy dance because it's like, oh my God, there's another person who's starting to listen, who's starting to tune in, because we talk
Yeah.
about tuning into your true knowing. Well, how do you do that? You can get messages from out there, but
Yeah.
in here is the tapestry that you carry, your divine blueprint, all of the knowledge and the wisdom that you need, that you chose before you incarnated, is available in here. So anything we do to take that moment of being curious. Why do we need curiosity? Because we need to move beyond conclusion. Conclusion has served us well up till now, but it's
Yep.
almost like let's thank that and move it off to the side. And for 5 minutes, let me reclaim my childlike curiosity and
Mm.
ask, what does the stone have to show me? And then because you're not doing this, you're not going, oh yeah, I'm open. No, you're not. You're open to what you think you need to know over here, but there's an entire diorama going on over here that is calling for your attention. So this is part of what I love about us doing the podcast, are these spontaneous ideas that come up because
Yeah.
we're more than one person working together with an intention of clarity and of divine service, then we potentiate one another. And part of what I love about this podcast is the ease with which these little ideas come forth that
Mm.
are actually useful daily things we can do to help enhance our consciousness, because that's ultimately what it's all about. How far can I expand my consciousness of who I am, who I'm here to be, and what's possible? and to remember the divine doesn't give us the impulse or the urge or the desire for something without already having plans for it to come forth. So anytime we're stuck in a place of this isn't working, I don't have a choice, that would be a really good time to call in the swan, the pond, and the stone, because we need to look beyond current circumstances and ask, what's here for me to know? What's here? What's new? What new perspective could I bring to this? That's a potent question as well.
Ah, beautiful. Well, and oh, just on that same theme, I just around the expanding our consciousness, I think what you just hit on is like it spirituality and spiritual practices are ultimately very, very practical. The whole point is it helps us to practically navigate the 3D human reality that when we're
Mm-hmm,
human doings, we're not using, like, there's a whole realm of spiritual gifts, abilities, and practices that help and ease us, that give us perspective and perceptions to help us navigate this 3D reality. And when we're just doing the human doings, we have
mm-hmm,
cut off a wealth of support,
yeah.
wisdom, knowledge,
Mm-hmm,
community, and connection as well, because
yeah.
there's lots of
Yeah.
women that come together, people that come together in spiritual community and connection, but we're just
Mm-hmm,
cutting off so much support for working in this 3D reality. And another thing I wanted to touch on around what you said around activating this internal system, this internal guidance and compass system, which we all have, which we're not really
yes.
taught in our culture to check in with. I've been learning and been initiated into the Andean mysticism lineage of
Mm-hmm,
the Andean Caro, the Pacos,
mm-hmm,
and they go back to the Inca. But what they talk about in the same, because this repeats through many different spiritual cultures, right? This notion of we all are our own individual drop of the divine, and that wants expression through me. The drop of divine that is you wants expression through you, and they call
yes.
that the Inca seed. And
Mm-hmm,
the whole it's energy practices, this tradition, which is really beautiful, but it's all about listening and
mm-hmm,
developing yourself to meet your Inca seed and to meet up with the direction that you're given, the impulses that you're given to, live your life. And as you said, it's all waiting for us. All
mm-hmm,
of these things that we feel inspired to do, parts of us we want to develop and experiences we want to have, it's all waiting for us. We just have to listen and then take the action. So, this is
yeah.
such a practical way of
Mm-hmm.
activating our Inca seed.
And just opening that door by
Yeah.
whatever wordage you call it. I am in awareness after having done this for so long that there is certain divine truths available through every healing
Yeah.
modality. They will be called different things, but there is a uniformity in terms of the Inca seed, or I've heard it referred to as the signature self, or your soul self, your divine
Yep.
self, your divine blueprint. This practice is a simple but potent way of beginning to crack open the door. So, not in a way that is overwhelming or
Yeah.
immersive, but those practical small steps that say, in the middle of who I am and in the busyness of doing, I'm going to take 5 minutes to connect with my essence. Because when we're busy doing, it can often feel like we're going like this in terms of the effort. When you move to a place of resonance, even just sitting with the sacred mist, doing the swan, the water, following the stone down 5 minutes, you've literally upped your energetic signature. And much like a radio station that's now become viral, you are now energetically tuned to a myriad of possibilities. So even if you think of yourself as when you start the process, you've got access to maybe 5 radio stations. 5 minutes of silence, being in curiosity, asking the question, now all of a sudden you've got 25 radio stations that are all beaming information to you. You will never be given information more than what your consciousness is ready to receive. It's just not possible. And by doing these practices, the energetic, the soul, the spirit mist, sacred mist, just setting the intention to be in sacred space, you've just elevated yourself to a place where literally, I'm telling you, there's a happy dance of your soul kin going on because it's like, oh, she's here. Let's go chat. Right? So
Absolutely.
profound and so simple.
So profound. And because it doesn't have to be these big, complex rituals, big and complex ceremonies. As much as I love putting on ceremonies, my ceremonies are actually fairly simple and straightforward because we have a tendency in our culture to get lost in the weeds and the rules. And oh, I didn't do that right. And oh, I did that wrong. And we have this sort of
Mm-hmm,
like real black and white. We have this tendency to have that relationship. Whereas this is a
mm-hmm.
very open, there's no wrong way of doing this. There's no, once we set the
Exactly.
intention, right? Where our intention goes, the energy flows. Once we set
Flows.
our intention, it's just flowing. And we can just trust in that until we start to prove ourselves to ourselves. By
Mm-hmm.
doing these practices, it proves itself out with time. So there's no need
Yeah.
to look for the evidence. The evidence will present
Complicate. Yeah, it will.
itself.
It will be there.
Yeah.
5 minutes of getting to know myself, and myself is a capital M, little y, capital S,
Yeah.
ELF. I'm spending 5 minutes of getting to know myself. And
Yeah.
myself is the venue through which the universe expresses itself. So those little nuggets of wisdom that are just literally sitting
Mm.
inside your consciousness, waiting for that just that moment of receptivity and what that might look like. I think that practice literally deserves, and you know that we love our journals. I wonder if that practice doesn't deserve its own little journal where you're sitting for 5 minutes a day having the journal in front of you and maybe with the non-dominant hand is what I'm shown. So let me just get some
Okay.
clarity here. So dominant hand, if there's a need to squiggle, doodle, or otherwise occupy the hand, you can do it with dominant hand. And then perhaps be curious about holding a pen or a pencil in your non-dominant hand and see if there is a symbol that wants to come
Mm.
forth. Conscious mind and egoic mind thinks in terms of words and sentences and fixes meanings to those words and sentences, which is still a point of conclusion.
Right.
Curiosity and working with the symbol as it comes forth would be a really potent way. It's like, oh, I wonder what the symbol means. I wonder what the message is. I wonder, and well, that's right. I don't have to know right this moment.
Right. Absolutely. And sometimes the answer comes, well, in the moment. It could come later. It might come in a dream. We might get the answer
Mm-hmm,
next week. There
mm-hmm,
might be a lag time, but it is making its
mm-hmm.
way to us, right?
Totally. I'm just in awareness of my cat choosing whether or not she's going to jump up on the table.
Oh, well, excellent. She just wants to be part of the
She wants
podcast
to be
fun.
part of it.
I can't blame her at all. It's great energy that we're sharing today. I think that that would actually make for a lovely journal on its own because we're asking ourselves, to have a deeper connection with oneself. And
Mm-hmm,
that's it's a 5 minute, really simple, beautiful practice, but it's very profound work. And
yeah.
I've when I've done my contemplative work, even if I've have just taken that little bit of time, sometimes I've gotten some really profound realizations.
Mm-hmm,
Sometimes just a small little nugget to help me shift. And
mm-hmm,
again, sometimes I have to wait for the response. But I think it would be really lovely to have a journal just dedicated to this kind of self inquiry. And what's
mm-hmm,
beautiful is that we can also if sometimes I don't often do it, but sometimes I will look back at my journals. I don't often do
mm-hmm,
it because I don't like to keep diving into the past and anchoring my
mm-hmm,
energy into what was. I want to be
mm-hmm.
focused on what is and what is
Yeah.
coming through. But
Yes. Yes.
once in a while I will flip through them and go, "Whoa. Wow. Holy." I've gotten such a reminder over things I've either overcome or
Mm-hmm,
progress in a sense I've made, although it's not all like I'm not trying to make it metric or progress related. And anyway, I've just found it really a beautiful thing every once in a while to look back
yeah.
and just to marvel
Mm-hmm,
at at the expansion I've experienced, and how I view life now versus where I was
Mhm.
in that particular point in time, the paradigm I was living in.
Yes.
I found that to be
I
incredibly fascinating.
Absolutely. I'm the same. I don't tend to read my previous journals, but I distinguish between journals in which I'm journaling my experience and my consciousness at the time. But I also have a couple of different journals that I've been working on, again related to that whole concept of legacy, where when wisdoms
Mm,
come forth, I document them in those journals because those are wisdom keepers. My journaling is the where am I, what am I thinking, what's happening in my life right now. I have a separate set of journals where I document wisdoms as they come through. Night journeys. I have a journal in my computer where when I capture insights overnight, I'll capture them in that computer list in the morning because they serve a different purpose. This journaling too is unique, isn't it? Because it's not today I had blah 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 for breakfast, I did blah 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 for work.
yep.
This journaling is 5 minutes of I don't have an agenda. I am asking to be present to myself. What does myself want to share with me? What
Mm,
does myself want me to know? And allowing that pebble of curiosity to fall down through the pond. It's a different way of being with yourself because it's not defined by the doing. You're
yeah.
actually existing, you're being in that 5 minutes. And you know what? There might be days, there might be several days in a row where when you are doing your 5 minute practice, you've brought in the sacred mist, you've done the swan, pebbles dropping down. What does the pebble have to show me? Or the boulder, depending on what it shows up as. There might be several days in a row where all you have is the visual or the sensation for those of you that don't do visual. That's fine.
Yeah.
Energy flows where intention goes. And so your intention is to have a dialogue with yourself. If you haven't had a dialogue with yourself very often, or perhaps you have the sense of not at all, although that's not true, we all have dialogues with ourselves, we just don't recognize it as such. It may be that you need a few days for there just to be the intention to sit with yourself. Maybe for you, your initial forays into self conversation will be quiet, will be 5 minutes of quiet.
Mm,
That's deeply soothing to the soul and still the same benefits, whether or not you are busy writing down images or thoughts or insights that are coming, or whether it is a place of silence, equally beneficial. It's important for the ego to know that because, again,
mm,
ego is based on results. This practice is about being with yourself. It's different. Yeah.
mm. Oh, that's beautiful. And I think so important to point out because we can tend to get some of us, like I can, impatient,
Hmm.
because nothing's happening. It's the 5 minutes, but maybe we
I've been
just
at this
needed the
for 30 seconds and I've not received a life changing insight. I'm sure I must be doing this wrong.
And then we make ourselves wrong. That you just nailed it. And then we say, I must be doing this wrong. Totally.
No.
And sometimes we just maybe the soul or our body or the energetic field maybe just needs quiet for 5 minutes. Maybe that
Yeah,
was the medicine of the moment.
exactly. That
Right?
sanctified silence can be a medicine in and of itself. We don't always have to have, oh, here she comes.
There
We don't
she
always have to
is.
have a busy brain.
Oh, sweetie. Introduce her to everyone. What's her
This
name?
is this is Miss Kiana. She is a rescue cat that I've had now for 3 years. And we are an ongoing experience of curiosity. She's a delightfully spunky, mischievous, and completely self contained unit.
Well, she did come to see you for a moment. She made sure she got
She
her
did.
cameo, I feel like.
Yes.
She wanted her
It's
cameo
like
for
I
the
came,
people.
I saw, I'm done. She is an excellent example of staying in constant curiosity because I'm often impressed with how cats just chill. Doesn't matter where they are, what's going on around them. They're just chilling. They're just being in the moment. They're like little mobile Buddhas, really.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of in their own energy bubble and kind of a little
Mhm.
bit unfazed, aren't they?
Totally, totally unfazed, wise little beings.
Yeah. See, we can learn so much. I know we can learn so much from all of our animal kin.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And that. even taking a moment of curiosity about their wisdoms instead of telling them who they be, what they are, or what the expectations are. That's one of the beautiful things about having a rescue cat. I have had to continually reframe my expectations to be more open to meeting her where she's at. And as we do that, we've created quite a cool little dynamic. But had I stayed stuck in the I will tell you instead of listening to her to say, okay, what does this mean when you do this behavior? What is the possibilities when you're in this place? So again, it's another level of asking a question without having an answer. Potency. Mm,
Beautiful. And in that moment, we see Kitty is our teacher.
yes,
In
absolutely.
those moments, they are our teacher, just like the swan in this beautiful, beautiful visualization is
Mhm.
creating its is a teacher. It's creating that medicine and that
Yes.
flow, right?
Mhm. And supporting us. We have so much support available to us when we begin to listen. So all of these practices we're talking about, the ways of connecting with joy that we discussed the last time,
Yeah.
the way of sitting in silence with an unanswered question this time, these are all potencies that are very practical, very easy to do, and yet so profound in terms of the energetic signature we offer to the world. It's a win-win.
Well, I don't know. I feel like ending it on there is ending it on a pretty profound
Exactly.
note. I don't know that we can summarize it more. You know, I
Oh,
don't know that we can land on a higher note. That was really beautifully put.
yeah, feels pretty complete.
Feels
All
pretty
right, then. Well,
complete.
then let's thanks all of the helping spirits and guides that came together to make this podcast a possibility and a reality. We ask that this message reach those who are ready to receive it, and in the receiving, elevate their consciousness so that the world continues to be a brighter, lighter, love filled space. We give thanks for our service to this. We surrender to the service of it. We give thanks for it, and we declare this podcast complete.
Beautiful. Oh, lovely. Thank you, my friend. What a
Till
beautiful
next time,
conversation.
my love. Indeed.
Until next time. All right, everyone.
Indeed.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Till then.